Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Adam Golov, Marketing and Communications Manager at Data Conversion Laboratory, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I want to let you know we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. So please write your questions in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we will make them available on our website. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Today, we are thrilled to introduce Elliot Kimber, who is a founding and active member of the DITA Technical Committee. And without further ado, welcome Elliot.
Thank you, Adam. So today we're going to talk about one of the new features in DITA 1.3, which is branch filtering, and the implications that that has for delivery, particularly delivery in HTML. So a little bit about me. As Adam said, I'm a founding and active member of the DITA Technical Committee, and I've been doing stuff with HTML and XML and generalized markup of all forms for quite a long time. I'm also the author of DITA for Practitioners, Volume 1, you can get from XML Press. So what are we going to talk about today? So I'm going to talk a little bit about reuse, and every page is page 1. If any of you are familiar with Mark Baker and his writings and on every page is page 1, we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about branch filtering and key scopes and how those new features of DITA really potentially change things in rather dramatic ways. Then we'll recap and have some discussion. So this presentation is really in 2 parts. The first part, I'm just going to talk about branch filtering and what it does and sort of the implications, and then the second part is more almost a plea to the community for as a community, we have to figure out how to approach these new potential challenges. All right, so we have topics that apply to multiple conditions. And if any of you are out there using DITA for technical documentation, you probably already have conditional content in your document. So this is not, conditional content is not a new feature of DITA. What's new is the ability to have within a single publication different conditions apply in different parts of that condition of that publication. So here, for example, we have some text that can apply to Windows or Mac or Linux. Right, so for example, I have an installation topic, has some operating system specific stuff, as well as stuff that applies to all the operating systems. So with branch filtering, what I can do is I can use that single topic. So here we've got our getting started topic, and then underneath that I have this installation topic. I reference it once from my map here on the left, but then I use this new feature in DITA 1.3 called DITAValRef that allows me to refer to different DITAVal files that specify different filtering conditions. So this has the effect of creating 3 copies of this pair of topics. So I have a reference to the top level topic, reference to the subordinate topic. Then when we process that and we want to generate HTML, what we get is a copy of those 2 topics for each of the DITAVal refs. So you can see now I have getting started for Windows, getting started for Mac OS, getting started for Linux, and they each then refer to a copy of the installation topic that only reflects that particular operating system. So this is a new feature in DITA 1.3. It's very handy. It satisfies a number of requirements that people have had for a long time in terms of being able to do basically publications that reflect different sets of conditions within a single publication. But this feature comes with some complications. And these complications have implications that I think as a community we need to think through carefully, and that's really the point of this presentation. So what did we get out of that branch filtered map? So we got 6 result HTML files where we started with 2 source files, right? If you're familiar with producing HTML from DITA, traditionally you would put in a map, a bunch of topics, and basically you got a set of HTML files that reflected the original topics, right? So for every input topic, you know, simplistically, you would get one result HTML topic, and that usually made sense. And there's things like, you know, chunking and so forth that could change that. But in the simple case, you have 10 topics in, you get 10 HTML result files out, and, you know, a table of contents that reflects your map structure. Now we got 2 topics in, we got 6 HTML files out, right? We got 3 HTML pages that all had the title installation, and I will submit that that is bad. We got platform-specific text in each of the HTML files, right? That's good. And we got 3 almost identical navigation patterns, right? Introduction and installation for each of the 3 operating systems. That may be good or maybe bad. I don't really know. So I don't know if any of you have had the same experience I have, which is I'm searching for an answer to something about a particular product. And I go to the vendor's website and I put in, you know, a search term, and I get back a long list of results, many of which have exactly the same title. Right? That's the problem with having 3 HTML pages that all have the title installation. Right? Installation of what? If I had found exactly 1 installation topic, that would be good. I'd know, oh, that must be the installation topic. But if I find 3, now I have to figure out which one I want, or I have to look at all 3, and then now my search experience is poor. Yeah, so what would be better? Well, it would be better to have a single result HTML file, or perhaps a single pair of HTML result files. But I would like the text as shown in the browser to reflect my desired platform, right? So as a reader of this content, I know what my desired platform is. I'm a Mac user. I want to see the stuff for Mac, right? I don't care about Windows. I don't care about Linux. That's what I want to see, right? I'd like to have a single talk structure in the top level HTML page that just shows there's introduction and then there's installation, not installation, or introduction, right? Or I'd like to have per platform navigation structures of a link from the one HTML page to the other pages that reflect the use context. And I wrote this and I was reviewing these slides. I was like, what am I really saying here, right? I'd really like to have, even though I've got only a single HTML result file, right, that under the covers reflects all the different platforms but allows me to see only the one I want, I might still want to have a navigation structure that says, oh, hey, if your Windows, go here, if your Mac, go here, if your Linux, go here, even though they're all actually only pointing to a single HTML file. But then through the details of that reference, have the presented results still reflect just the operating system you care about. Right? So basically what I'm saying is we want dynamic HTML. And I should mention, I first gave this presentation at DITA Europe last year, and one of the themes at that conference that emerged out of the different papers that were given was the dynamic delivery of HTML. Several different people gave talks about how they're doing dynamic delivery of HTML out of DITA content. So it definitely seems to be something that is becoming more and more both a requirement that people have and a thing that people are doing. And you're seeing more products that do pretty cool dynamic delivery of HTML beyond just what the Open Toolkit gives you. So I'm talking about the same thing. I'm not offering any specific solution, but what I am talking about is the implications for dynamic delivery that branch filtering brings to us. So I want dynamic HTML, so I want one HTML page that reflects all the conditions, Right? So that I still have one topic in, one HTML page out, but that one HTML page reflects all the conditions that we were filtering on. Then I'd like dynamic display of the content to reflect the user's current condition set, right? And I'd like this dynamic display of links that also reflect the user's current condition set. Right? So one of the challenges is having gotten to a page that then has links out of it, I only want to actually see or follow the links that will take me to what's still relevant in the context of the conditions that I had set as I came into that topic. Right? It's an interesting challenge. So the way this might look, for example, is in my browser, I have a way to select my platform. I'll say, all right, I'm really interested in Mac OS. Then that's going to have the effect of only showing me the Mac OS stuff, that is dynamic filtering in the browser. And then there's a link from there, right, from getting started to installation, that will take me to an installation topic, and again, filter that view only for Mac OS. So how do we get something like that? Right? So it certainly requires a different way of thinking about HTML generation, certainly different from the way that, for example, the Open Toolkit does it today. And I know that there are people out there, who are doing this kind of thing in products. So I'm not suggesting anything particularly radical, but I'm trying to make the point that the way that you generate this HTML is fundamentally different than the relatively, simple way that the Open Toolkit does it. Right? It requires more sophisticated HTML delivery details to enable dynamic display, right? So you're going to have something in your delivery system, JavaScript or some sort of intelligence there to make that work. And then we also need user interfaces for readers so that they can select their current conditions. And then we also need appropriate display of conditional content when no filtering is applied in the browser, right? So I've set up this environment where I have very sophisticated, delivery of my HTML, but that requires a reader that at least can, run JavaScript or a custom reader application or whatever it is. If I want to deliver that same HTML to, a very simple browser, one that, for example, isn't allowed to run JavaScript, I still need to get some sort of appropriate result. So, for example, I might want there to be, typical flagging in the presented HTML in that case. What we would do without this kind of dynamic delivery. So I want to talk a little bit about every page is page one. So in the past, I have largely disagreed with Mark, and I've seen him talk, and he's got very interesting ideas, but I always found that and I'm not even sure I can articulate why I never necessarily agreed with Mark, but I'm certainly on record as not really agreeing with Mark. Mark's basic premise is that people who are accessing content on the web or in any kind of online system, they can enter it at any point, which is certainly true, right? If I do a search, I'm going to get to some topic. I don't really necessarily even know what the context in which that topic lives is, right? So part of Mark's point is that you have to write in such a way that whatever page you land on makes sense to the person who landed on it. I don't think that's really practical in a lot of contexts, but irrespective, that's Mark's approach. But one of the fundamentals of what he says is include it all filtered afterward. And I realized as I was thinking through this that in fact that's pretty much what I'm saying as well, that in this context where we have branch filtering, where the same content can reflect many different conditions, and you would like to have a single deliverable object, right, a single HTML page that has those different conditions in it and then can be dynamically filtered, that's exactly what Mark Baker is talking about, at least partly in his every page is page one. So I want to give Mark credit here for certainly having thought through these issues in the past and written about them fairly cogently, and also admit that perhaps some of what Mark is talking about actually makes some sort of sense. So what does this mean for reuse and deliverable publishing, right? So we talk about publications, and DITA in particular is an XML application for creating content that is primarily to be consumed by humans who are reading it, as opposed to content that's being consumed by computer programs that use it as data for some other data processing application. Right? We're writing stuff that people are going to read, right? And it has value because we publish it. If we don't publish it, nobody can read it. Right? So defining the term publication, the result of processing a route map into a deliverable. And this is not a term that's currently defined in the DITA specification, but it's certainly a concept that most people using DITA, or in fact any publishing system at all, would agree that this is what a publication is. I'm trying to be a little bit more formal here because in a DITA context, there are lots of ways to use DITA and to organize it that is not actually directly related to publication as I'm using it here. So I'm just trying to establish the context in which I'm going to talk about more stuff. Right? So we have maps that represent deliverables, that is things that are going to be published. Right? And there's many different deliverable forms that we can use. We have HTML, PDF, EPUB, online help, non-DITA XML, lots of different things that we can produce out of DITA, which is of course part of its power. I'm specifically concerned here with publishing for the purpose of reading content. Right? So what I realized is there are different kinds of deliverables, and those different types of deliverables have different reuse implications and therefore different implications for the use of branch filtering in particular. And I think it's useful to define these two different deliverable types, and so we can talk about them more clearly. So there's monolithic deliverable types. Those would be things that are published as basically a single, atomic artifact. So a PDF is an example of that, EPUB, et cetera. Right? Things that basically don't break down into smaller pieces in the way that HTML does. Right? In a monolithic deliverable, reuse, as we talk about it in DITA, that is using the same topic in multiple places, is not an issue because the result is a single unified narrative flow. So you don't run into any issues with context if the same topic is reused multiple times in a single publication when it's published monolithically. And that's because your navigation position within that narrative flow is always unambiguous, right? I'm on page 15. If the same topic is used later in the publication, it's going to occur on page 46. Those two pages are clearly different. My table of contents is going to point to page 15 or page 46, right? That's the basic value there of monolithic deliverables. And then we have multi-file deliverable types. So multi-file is where the delivered artifact is broken up into many small pieces, and of course HTML is the obvious example of that. There are other forms, but fundamentally everything is now, anything that's multi-file is basically HTML. Right? I mean, you could do something silly like generate individual PDFs for each topic or something and then deliver those as a unit, but no, nobody does that. Right? And so to think about this simply, you have one result file per source topic, right? And that's, for example, the way that the Open Toolkit HTML transform has worked historically. You put the topics in, you process them to HTML, you get HTML files out that correspond pretty much one-to-one for your source topics. The challenge here is that the navigation position may be ambiguous for reuse topics. So if, for example, I have the same topic used twice in the same publication, I either only generate one HTML result file for that, and therefore when I link to it, it becomes ambiguous which use of that topic I'm really talking about, or I have to generate two files for it because it's used twice, and now I have to be able to have some way of, when I link to it, distinguishing which of those two uses I want to be linking to. In particular, the case of cross-references, if I have a cross-reference to another topic and that topic is used twice, which of those two uses do I want to link? Do I want my link to actually go to? Right? And people run into this quite often when they're generating HTML from the DITA Open Toolkit, and the topic is used twice, but they only get one one result HTML file. So either you end up seeing two different parents in if you're generating your your relationship links, or you don't have a way of saying, and in that cross-reference, which of those two uses of the topic you want to go to. And so then once the user follows that link, they may be lost in the larger navigation structure because the topic occurs in multiple places. Right. For simplicity, in the rest of my discussion, I'm going to use the term HTML to represent all multi-file deliverable types, just to keep it clear. All right. So let's take a minute now to review the reuse features in DITA over the lifetime of the DITA standard as it's been developed. So in DITA 1 and DITA 1.1, you can't actually do reuse reliably. And here, by reliably, I mean if the same topic is used twice, either in the same publication or twice in two different publications, and you want to have links from that topic to other places, there was no way in DITA 1.1 or 1.0 to actually author those links in a way that would reliably work. The addressing mechanisms simply weren't there. And that's one of the reasons that DITA had relationship tables, was because that was an alternative to creating the effect of cross-references, given that you couldn't actually author cross-references in a reliable way in the face of reuse. If you're not reusing your topics, then everything would work. But if you were doing any reuse of those topics, your links were simply uncontrollable. Now, we didn't make a big deal of that at the time, but we can talk about it now because we fixed it. Right, so in DITA 1.2, we added the keys mechanism, and that allowed reuse within limits. So with keys, I can have a cross-reference to a key, and then within the map that's using the topic, I can bind that key to the specific topic I want to get to. And that allows me to use the same topic either multiple times or in multiple publications, and have the cross-references out of that topic go to the appropriate place in each of the different maps that uses that topic. Likewise, if the same topic is used twice, I can put keys on the references to that topic, and then I can have cross-references to those keys. So my cross-reference can now take me to the specific use of the topic that I want to go to. The challenge with DITA 1.2 is that keys are global, meaning that for a given key name, it can have exactly one binding in the scope of your root map. There was no way to get the same key reference to go to different places within the scope of a single publication, and that was a problem. So in DITA 1.3, we added the new feature key scopes, and key scopes allow you to have the same key name bound to different resources in different parts of the same map. And then we also added branch filtering. Right? So between key scopes and branch filtering, we enable basically all the reuse use cases. I haven't taken the time to sit down and like enumerate every possible reuse use case I can think of, but just thinking through the problem generally, pretty much all the requirements there are in terms of reusing things so that links to them or from them will work appropriately and can be controlled, pretty much satisfied. But key scopes and branch filtering adds a lot of complexity, right? And that complexity is not just in the data processing complexity, which certainly is there. The DITA Open Toolkit team is still working on fully implementing support for key scopes and branch filtering, and I know any vendor of DITA supporting tools is probably still working on their key scope and branch filtering support, because they have a lot of sophistication. From an authoring standpoint, they saw for people who have the requirements that branch filtering and key scopes satisfy, they really need that. And branch filtering in particular is a big convenience because it allows you to avoid having to basically duplicate structures in your map that only differ in the filtering applied to them. So branch filtering in particular is a very convenient feature, but it imposes data processing complexity. It also imposes some delivery challenges as well. And that's what we're talking about here. So reuse use cases that I want to talk about. So we have the same content used multiple times and filtered in different ways. And that was the use case that I started with at the beginning, right? We have a pair of topics. They have content for different operating systems. They're used multiple times. Each of those uses filters that content differently. We could have the same link from a used topic that we want to resolve to different topics, different targets, and different use contexts, right? So from a single topic as authored, I want to have a single link in that go to the appropriate place in each of the different scopes that topic's used in, right? So if I have a generic installation topic, for example, I might have a link that says, here's the assembly, here's the cover removal instructions, which are different for each different model that these instructions otherwise apply to, right? So I want to have a link go to a different topic in each of the contexts that this generic topic is used in. It's a pretty typical example. I need to have cross-deliverable links, so I need to be able to say, from this topic in publication A, I want to link to another topic in publication B. All right, so in DITA 1.2, we had global filtering, right? So global filtering means that the same topic used multiple times must have exactly the same lineage result in all the use contexts, right? So if I use the same topic 2 or 3 times in my map, and it could be filtered in different ways, with global filtering, I can only filter it one way. So all the uses of that topic are going to reflect exactly the same filtered result in my output. Right? That allows you to have a single result HTML file regardless of the number of uses, because we know, because of global filtering, that HTML file can only look one way, right? At the same time, that means there was no way to have a single topic reflect different conditions in different parts of the same publication, right? It also resulted in possible navigation ambiguity that we talked about before, right? The same topic's used multiple times. When I get to that topic, or I want to link to that topic, which use of the topic either have I gotten to, or do I want to link to? Right? And it's really the second item here. There's no way to have single topic reflect different conditions in different parts of the same publication. That was a real pain point for a lot of DITA users, right? You often want to have a single publication that reflects multiple models of the same product, or different products, or different operating systems, or different usage locales, whatever it is. It's one publication about fundamentally the same thing, but within that publication, you want to have the same content used multiple times and filtered in different ways. Simply no way to do that in DITA 1.2. Yeah. Now you could work around that. You could do some tricks with sort of inverting the way that you think about your reuse, and you could therefore have topics that have reflect different conditions, and then use conref to pull in the stuff that's the same. But that was, and I know people do that, but that's really not a natural thing to do. I mean, it really disrupts the authoring aspect of your content, right? It'd be much easier just to have a single topic with multiple conditions and you just filter them, right? And you just couldn't do that in DITA 1.2. All right, so in DITA 1.3, we have branch filtering. Right, so different branches within the map can have different filtering conditions. And here by branch, we simply mean a topic ref within the map establishes a new branch. And any topic ref can have any number of filtering conditions associated with it using those DITA ref elements. Right? So now we can have a single topic that reflects multiple conditions, and it can produce different results in different use contexts. Right? So if I use the same topic in the Mac OS section, branch, and I use it also in the Windows branch, I can filter it differently, and it'll reflect in the output different filtered results. Yeah, something you could not do before in DITA. Right? That removes the need to have copies of topics that differ only in their conditional content. Right? So that's an important improvement. But the delivery implication is that you cannot have a single result HTML file in this case, right? At least if we think about HTML delivery in a fairly simple way, right? If I have, for every use of the topic, I'm going to produce a separate HTML file. Obviously, I have to have different HTML files for each of those uses because their rendered result is different because of the filtering applied to them. Yeah, so that breaks one of the basic assumptions of, for example, the DITA Open Toolkit HTML transform, which was that for every topic in, I could have one HTML file result without worrying about how many times that topic was used. Right? So I say, all right, we cannot have a single result HTML file in the case. Or can we? Right? Is there a way that we can still have a single result HTML file but get the delivery results we want, that is, that the filtering gets applied? Right? So I've been focusing on branch filtering, but keyscopes have the same implication as branch filtering. Right? So different branches in the map may have different keyscopes. And that means that a key reference that's in a topic, right, a cross-reference or a content reference, doesn't matter which you're doing, a key reference in a topic that's used in different scopes that key reference may resolve to different topics, right? Which means that, again, the rendered result is going to be different, or at least it could be different, right? So the same topic used in different contexts that uses key references may have different rendered results in different contexts, right? So, for example, if I have a generic topic that needs to reflect different product names, and I have a multi-product publication, I can have, for each product, I would have a different scope, and in each of those scopes, I would have a different set of, quote, variable defining key definitions that resolve to the appropriate product name in that context, right? So then when I render that topic, each of those different use contexts are going to reflect a different product name in the rendered result. So even though the topic itself doesn't change, the rendered result is absolutely going to be different for each of those uses. Right? And this would, again, appear to require distinct result files in the output. Right? And that's obviously certainly the easy way to do it, right? But there's got to be a way to deliver things in a way that doesn't require literally making copies of those result files. So what does all that mean? Right? So we have now branch filtering. We have keyscopes that allows us to have the same content used in multiple contexts in the same publication, such that the rendered result, either is guaranteed to be different or certainly could be different depending on the details of our content. Right? So a single source topic or branch can result in multiple result HTML files. That allows single publications to reflect different conditions in different parts of the publication. That's a very important feature that we certainly didn't have in DITA 1.2, and that a lot of people need. Right? But that can also result in a proliferation of topics that are almost the same. Right? So for example, if the only difference in my topics is the product name and all the rest of the content is the same, if I do a search, and I'm searching on the content of those topics, not just on the product name, I'm going to find a lot of results that are, very much the same, and it's going to be hard for me to determine as somebody having done the search, which of those topics are actually appropriate for me, right? Because I might not notice, or it may not be obvious, that the only difference is the product name, right? So that could be bad for search. It's probably bad in other ways, but I'm really focused on search here, because if you're generating HTML for delivery from your content, you're probably doing it largely to put it on the web, and one of the main reasons for putting it on the web is so that you can then search on it, right? So I'm making the presumption here that a primary motivation for delivering your content as HTML is so that people can search on it, right? And you want that search experience to be a good one, right? So if you're focused, if you're doing documentation for products of any non-trivial size and complexity, it's likely that the degree to which your users can find the right information quickly and not find non-useful information as part of that same search is an important aspect of your customer satisfaction numbers, right? That is your goal as a technical, as an information developer, as a developer of information to support these products. One of your primary goals is to help your customers find the right information quickly and not find the wrong information. Right? So search is really important. Once they get to the content, of course, it has to be well written, it has to be understandable, they have to be able to perform whatever task it is they're trying to perform or answer whatever question they're trying to answer, but they have to get to it first, right? So search is very important here. So that suggests to me that we need more sophisticated HTML delivery, certainly than we get out of, the out-of-the-box open toolkit HTML today. And again, this is not really a problem for monolithic deliverables, right? Because if I'm producing a PDF of an entire publication, both the navigation structure and where I am and the context in which I find something is much clearer, right? So I'm really only concerned with HTML results. So some of the implications for HTML delivery. So you'd like to generate a single HTML result file for a given, well, the implication today is that you're going to generate a single HTML result file for a given filtering branch. Wait a second, what am I saying here? Did I say this clearly? Right. I think my first bullet isn't actually what I intended to say. I would like to generate a single HTML result for a topic that's used in multiple filtering branches, where that single HTML result reflects all the contributions from all the different branches, right? In that HTML, I need to include additional information, whatever it is, whether it's JavaScript or metadata or attribute values, whatever, that allow me to dynamically render the results on the fly, right? So I need to be able to filter on the fly. I need to be able to flag on the fly. And one of the things to remember about conditional content in DITA is that whether the content is filtered or whether it's flagged is a delivery time question. In the source, you're just saying this element applies to these conditions. How those conditions get used for delivery is up to you. You can filter it or you can flag it. And what you do depends on the needs of your readers. And then, of course, we have to provide user interfaces and access paths that establish the user's current filtering content, right? So there has to be something that the readers, in your web delivery, however you're doing it, however you're presenting the stuff on the web, there has to be a way for your readers to say, these are the conditions I care about at the moment. And that has to lead to both, either dynamic filtering or flagging and access paths through the content that, that establish their filtering context. And of course, we still need fallbacks for limited browser environments. So if somebody's accessing this, this content with an ancient version of Internet Explorer or, some terminal-based browser, it should still be, minimally acceptable. All right. So that's all really just to say that these new features, branch filtering, keyscopes, can lead to a completely different, not a completely different, but a very different way of thinking about how you need to deliver HTML, ways that you need to think through from a delivery standpoint, from an information design standpoint, from a user experience standpoint, where by user I mean the person searching for your content and finding it and reading it. And so really this is a plea to the community to be aware that these challenges are now there where they really weren't before. Right? Because before DITA 1.3, you didn't really have a way of creating content that had these challenges, right? Because you couldn't do branch filtering, because you didn't have keyscopes, you couldn't have content that reflected different conditions within the same publication. So the problem just didn't arise. Now the problem arises, we need to think about it. So as a community, I think we need to establish appropriate user interaction approaches, principles, and implementations, right? So it seems to me that it would be useful to have, within the DITA community, within the community of information development professionals generally, some basic agreement on, user interaction approaches, principles, implementation, so that there's some consistency, and so that we don't all have to reinvent these, somewhat challenging delivery paradigms ourselves. Which is not to say that there's only one right way to do it, but just that, if we can come up with some agreement about what a good way to do it is, it would be nice to have that, written down somewhere and ideally implemented in some easy to access way. That implies that we need a library of common JavaScript and CSS code to enable this type of delivery, right? So here I'm assuming that the primary delivery mechanism is HTML on the web, and that that the primary way of implementing the dynamics that we need is through JavaScript and CSS, right? So taking advantage of the web technologies that are, in common use, HTML5, JavaScript, CSS, there's no reason we couldn't have as a community, a common library, a common set of libraries that make this kind of delivery relatively easy, right? We would need to make this available. Generally, we would need to enhance the Open Toolkit to produce this backup HTML. There are people building products that do this kind of thing now, and that's good. But as a community, DITA has always grown in part because there's free open source tools that at least allow you to get started and to demonstrate the value of what you're doing with DITA. And if you need a commercial product to take it farther, that's fine. But it's we really need basically as a community there has to be an open source solution just so that the cost of entry is not go buy this product. Right? I'm not saying that this would be that a toolkit solution would be the be all and end all, but it would be the start. We need to have something there. And I'm also not volunteering to do this work. I'm just trying to make it clear that this needs to happen. And because this is certainly not something I can personally do as an implementer. All right, so oops, I went the wrong way. So that's my basic plea and my message to the community. We now have these powerful new features in DITA 1.3, branch filtering, key scopes. We do lots of cool stuff with it, but we also have to, as a community, I think, start to try to address some of the delivery challenges that these cool new features represent. So with that, I will turn it over to questions.
Thank you, Elliot. A very informative webinar indeed. The first question has come in is the DITA valref for use with the DITA Open Toolkit only?
Is DITA valref for use with the DITA Open Toolkit only? Absolutely not. So DITA valref it's a new feature in DITA 1.3, so it's part of the standard. So any tool that claims to support DITA 1.3 should support DITA valref and branch filtering.
Thank you, Elliot. The next question has come in is, what tools are available to produce this type of HTML?
What tool is able to produce this kind of HTML? Well, right, that's part of my plea. At the moment, I don't know of any generally available tools that do this. I know there's some commercial tools out there, which I don't have any direct experience with, but I know that there's the one that's made in Europe, and its name just flew right out of my head. And then there's I know they do something along these lines. There's gosh, I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment, and these product names are just not coming to me. But there are certainly vendors who make some custom HTML delivery tools and some dynamic DITA delivery tools that can probably do a lot of the things I've talked about. But for just like with the Open Toolkit, as far as I know, there's certainly the Open Toolkit as through version 2.4 doesn't do this. I don't know of anybody working on any plugins that do it. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure I answered it. Fluid Topics. That was the European company I was thinking of. I know they do some pretty sophisticated stuff with dynamic delivery of HTML. So they would be an example of a commercial product, but for open source tools, I'm not aware of any.
Thank you, Elliot. The next question has come in is there a way to use branch filtering to output a different group of HTML file based on the conditions? In other words, to generate a complete output set of HTML files based on Windows, another complete output set of HTML files based on Mac, then another set of HTML files based on Linux. I know this approach is not as sophisticated as a solution as filtering it after the fact, but is an option we would like to explore.
Sure, and I'm not sure how that would be different from just using global filtering, right? So for example, one of the things that you can do with DITA as is defined in DITA 1.3 is you can have DITA elements that are direct children of the map, and then that implies that the entire map will be processed once for each DITA and basically give you what you want, right? That ends up being the equivalent of just processing the map 3 times and specifying a different DITA at runtime, but it could certainly be more convenient to do that with DITA in the map. So I think that, I think that's already provided for in the DITA mechanism and the way it's defined in DITA 1.3. Now, whether, for example, the Open Toolkit does that today, I'm not sure. I haven't actually tested that behavior.
Great, thank you, Elliot. The last question that has come in is, could the same dynamic techniques be applied to PDF or EPUB?
They could be applied to EPUB to the degree that your EPUB reader enables the use of JavaScript. So like, iBooks certainly does, and Adobe Digital Edition certainly does. Because certainly in those EPUB reader contexts, you can have JavaScript that could do dynamic filtering, for example. Or you might have a more custom EPUB reader that had, something more along the lines of the, establish your reading conditions and then go into the book kind of thing. For PDF, I suppose you could, because you can script PDF as well, but I'm not sure how that would work in something that's more paginated. The reason that it can work more easily in HTML and EPUB is because those, the presentation is dynamically flowed. But in PDF, if you filter things out dynamically, you'd either have, I'm not sure what that would do to your pages. You might end up with just big holes in your pages where things got hidden. But maybe I'm not thinking about it creatively enough.
Well, thank you, Elliot, and thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. This will conclude today's broadcast. You'll be able to access the recording on our website located at www.dclab.com. Our next webinar will be Thursday, March 30th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, titled Following the Trends 2017, being presented by Dawn Stevens, President of Contact Services and Director of the Center for Information Development Management, and Mark Rose, President of DCL. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
All right, take care.